we're talking about getting support from family, maybe come from some wealth or come from nothing. Have you seen some situations where you would say the family's done well in terms of how they've gone about providing financial support, to their kids?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. We ask people, do you want to provide financial support to your kids, like as they grow up and they become adults and stuff?
Welcome back to the Winner's Playbook. Josh here with Billy as usual, and today we're going to be speaking to people building wealth from the ground up. If you didn't grow up with money or you are the first in your family trying to get ahead financially, this one is for you. We're going to be talking about how to start from scratch, what to avoid, and how to create a future you are proud of, even without a head start. Billy, I know this one hits home for a lot of people, but before we jump into our topic, what's the latest on your end, mate? And how's the week been?
Yeah, pretty good, Josh. I've been speaking to a lot of pregnant women. So I put up on,
Go.
I put up on TikTok a few weeks ago a deep dive into paid parental leave and how that works. And it obviously struck a nerve. It's an area I think a lot of people get confused about. So I just got inundated with pregnant women wanting to talk money with me. So I've just been jumping in and out of meetings with these couples who are expecting babies. And it's funny, that started about 3 weeks ago. And since then, I've had, sadly, 1 miscarriage and 2 births. So they keep messaging me saying, oh, we just had our baby. And
No way.
it's quite, my wife's a midwife, so we're both got the same sort of customers at the moment. So it's been a funny few weeks.
Yeah, I can imagine. Is with your advice, like talking to that, like, are you approaching it any differently than you usually would with these pregnant families coming through?
A little bit. I mean, usually money is pretty tight through that period. So we're not doing anything. We're generally not making any big, investment moves or anything like that. Um, but you can certainly structure it so you get through that period reasonably unscathed, right? You just don't want to come out the other side with no cash in the bank and,
Yeah.
really worrying about money. So
Yeah.
just having a bit of a basic sort of plan through that period, it gives people heaps of peace of mind. So that's the sort of stuff I've been talking about. Then there's some practical stuff with, life insurance and having everything set up for starting a family.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a particular tricky period of time that I've obviously just gone through as well. And Leon was 9 months old yesterday, which is exciting. And he's getting better at moving, and he's got one of those little walkers now that's got the barrier around it, and he's got the hang of it now. Whereas before he would just kind of stand there and look at you. Now he just full pelt around the house, smashing, crashing, grabbing drawers, just going into absolutely everything that you can imagine. So smashing into your ankles and all the fun stuff. So he's slowly trying to figure his way out of walking. Like, you hold his hands and he's sort of stumbling around and getting his balance. So maybe in the next couple of months he might be walking, which is for the better or worse, because that presents a whole nother problem and probably things we're going to have to change around the house, actually, in terms of just being able to access a lot of the areas. So all fun on the home front, of course. But diving into the topic today, Billy. So we're talking about getting support from family. I suppose we've all seen clients that have or have not had maybe come from some wealth or come from nothing. Everyone's got different experiences, but we were chatting before we came on in terms of what are better forms of financial support, or the bad ways, I suppose, of doing it, before we really dive in. What have you seen some situations where you would say the family's done well in terms of how they've gone about providing financial support, to their kids, and then to the reverse of that? What are situations maybe where it hasn't been done in the right way, you think?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. There's a lot in it because we, we ask people, do you want to provide financial support to your kids, like as they grow up when they become adults and stuff? Do you want to give them support? And you get a pretty wide array of answers. Like, some people, there's quite a few clients I've spoken to where they're like, I want to buy each of my children a house, right?
Yeah, I've had it.
Yeah, I'm sure you've had that too. And then the other extreme is, no one helps me. I'm not helping them. 18, off they go. They can get out there and figure it out. So there's definitely both extremes, and everyone's got an opinion on it. So in my view, somewhere in the middle is probably the right place to be. but it can be done badly. And the way I think, which is not good, is just giving them everything. Like just giving them money whenever they need it, saying you can live here as long as you want. Just paying the bills for them, giving them spending money. That's not good because it doesn't encourage any sort of like ownership of their own life or, figuring out how to create financial independence. It doesn't motivate it like a young adult to go get a career or start a business or whatever it might be. So that's not that's a damaging way, I think, that some parents that approach isn't good. What have you seen?
Yeah, no, I've seen that, and I think that the key part there is just not imparting the right, tools and systems onto the kids or whoever's getting the money, because the money won't really change anything if they don't have the right sort of wiring inside. Like it may not, I forget the saying of how that goes, where one generation builds it up, and then it takes, I don't know if you know that saying, but how the one generation builds it up and the other one spends it and blows it and so on. So I think that the key part there is, if you are going to do that, then, which I think is a good thing, mind you, it's just doing it in that right way. And that's definitely something I'm even now thinking about, is like, how do you let your child go out and into the world, and you want them to make mistakes and screw up so they can learn the lessons and build up that, resilience and discipline, yeah, without giving it to them too easy as well. Because if you've come up with nothing, a lot of the reason why you do a lot of things, and even for me personally, is because I want my family to have a better life than I say had growing up, and have it easier to an extent. But then it's like, if I didn't have that experience, and I wouldn't have turned out in the way that I am as well. So it's this weird balancing act between it all. But I think there's other ways you can give financial support as well, which out without necessarily handing over dollars. Of course, well, an inheritance is not really a planned one, but that can happen. Gifts, providing some money. I've seen that. Paying off schooling, like HECS fees and things like that. I've seen that before, in terms of helping kids with university, and then of course providing money for first home deposits. For me personally, we had a little bit of support when we bought our first home. We had a guarantor from the in-laws, and we didn't need the guarantor, but it helped us at that point in time without having to sell a lot of the shares that I built up. So we were able to use a guarantor to put in less money. So that's always one I see that one quite often, I'd say. These days, with those in their 20s and 30s, parents got a bit of equity in the principal residence or a property, and willing to put that up as security, basically, for the kids to go out and buy their first home. And that means the parents aren't actually handing over any dollars. They're just basically going guarantor or putting up security for a portion of the loan, and then the kids don't need a full 20% deposit in those situations. So I think there's definitely good and bad ways of doing it, but I think first and foremost, you just got to, I suppose, through raising your kids, making sure you're imparting the right sort of skill sets and
Relationship with money.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. Because the money won't change things. Money's just going to amplify more of the good and the bad. And if they've got a lot of those bad habits, the money's just going to amplify that. And I say that to all my clients as well. Whereas if they're, it can also amplify to the good, and provide you more opportunity and options, I suppose, in your life. But if we dive into, the hardest part of then building wealth with no financial support, Billy, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's very hard starting from zero, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you say you're an entrepreneurial type, you want to start a business, well, generally it costs money to start a business. If you're not in that category and you're happy, being an employee and building a career, you got to start at the bottom. So it just the amount of hard work and patience that it takes before you feel like you're getting anywhere. I feel like that's there's people in their 30s and 40s that still feel like they're in that position.
Mm.
Like they've been patient, they've worked hard, and they still don't feel like they're making any progress. That's the
Yeah.
hard bit, is having that. How do you articulate it? Like having that first breakthrough.
Well, it's really delayed gratification, I suppose, is
Yeah.
the hardest part there, because everyone wants it, everyone wants it now, and not necessarily wanting to put into work. And I think that's the hardest part of, like, really starting from scratch. It's like trying to push a big wheel over for the first time. And I use that analogy a lot for clients, like that first first few rotations of the wheel like take so much work, but then it does get easier down the line, and as time naturally goes by. But there's no way of saying it other than the fact of if there's no one around you who's going to give you that support, and whether that's through money or guidance or whatever it may be, like it comes down to you as an individual, and you actually have to get your hands dirty. And that could be literally, or it could be just, grinding for a period of time, little social life. Like we talk a lot about trade-offs with our clients, Billy. It's,
Yeah.
it's pretty simple with these decisions. Like if you want X, then there's usually going to be a trade-off of something there and in between. And, if you want to scale a business or you want to build a vast amount of wealth, whatever that means, it's probably going to require you working hard for a period of time, and that might mean little social life, or it might mean you working a couple of jobs. For me, earlier on, it was working full time as a concreter and studying full time at university. So that meant like limited social life. Still had a little bit of a social life, but pretty limited on weekends and uni assignments and things like that. But again, I knew it wasn't going to be like that forever, and I'm very glad my studies are gone and out of the way. I suppose we're always forever learning, but there's a period of time, or a season I like to call it, where you just got to get those hands dirty, and it's a part of it, for whatever you're ultimately trying to achieve. Would you agree, Bill?
Yeah, and that's the hard part is like accepting the amount of time and hard work it might take. And if you're in your early 20s, 1 year seems like forever.
Yeah, it does.
But but that hard work and that grind, that's probably going to be more than a year. So I think it's hard for people to see, okay, this is actually going to pay off, to actually have that belief.
Yeah, and I was thinking earlier of like, is there an actual time frame, that you could say that you would have to grind for if you're starting from zero? And I was thinking, I was like, I don't feel like I got a breakthrough at all for like a good probably 3 or 4 years there, and it was just not really much reward at all. So I don't know the exact time frame in it, but you got to be thinking in terms of years, which can then be
Way longer for me, way longer. And those are a whole range of reasons. But
yeah,
yeah, I just persisted, and then it eventually came.
yeah,
It depends what you're trying to do, I guess. Like if you're trying to start a business, you've got this big idea. Well, that's a high risk profile, right? Like if
yeah,
it doesn't work out, you've got nothing. If it works out, you could do really well really quickly. Whereas if you're, oh, I want to be a lawyer, well, you're going to study for years, you're going to start on an average salary. It's going to take a really long time, but it's a well-worn path.
yeah. Unless
So
you
it
direct.
depends what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose you actually got to pick your lane there, and first and foremost figure out what you want and which direction you want to go in. But if no one's then taught you this stuff, where do people start? Where do they start by way of going about building this financial confidence, or yeah, how would you start if you were starting again and telling Billy Norman back at when he was 17, 18, how would you get him started?
Yeah, if I was speaking to my younger self, I think it's the most important thing is who you talk to and what connections you make, because you can find people who, let's say they're at where you want to be, and you can talk to them and be like, what happened? How did you get there? Like, what's
Yeah.
the journey? Because I don't think like online or learning or like, I don't think that's really the answer. I think you actually have to talk to people. You have to find people who've done it, or people who are, yeah, where you want to be, and make those connections and go from there. And ideally some sort of mentor, I guess, as part of that.
I would say that's by far the best way to fast track it, for sure. Hands down. It's like someone that's been, if you think of it like a game, like someone's already conquered that level before. So rather than you trying to fiddle your way through the level and making all of these mistakes, you just simply seek out someone who's been through all of these levels before and battled I don't know, the dragon or something. And they've slayed the dragon or whatever it may be. They've done these things before. So I couldn't agree more. That is well and truly the best way of doing it. And sometimes that might actually require paying for advice as well. But then naturally, I suppose the things that are a lot easier to execute on, which may not have the biggest ROI, but like for me earlier on, it was
Mm.
like I read a share market book to begin that my nana gave me, I think when I was like 17, and I was just reading that and didn't really know what was going on, but it got me thinking about the share market, and then I bought some shares shortly thereafter. So, I think there's definitely, and that's a low cost. Like you might buy a book for $10 or $20, you just find it online for free. But again, it can be a bit boring reading books sometimes as well. Courses, there are some good courses out there. So educating yourself is a part of it, but then also just realizing you're going to make mistakes, but just making those mistakes and looking for the learnings in them. Because at the beginning, you generally don't have that much to lose as well. So like if you make a mistake, it's like, well, you haven't risked your family home and you've got 3 kids and a massive mortgage or something like that, and you're going to be, going to rent somewhere or whatever it may be. So you can generally take on a lot more risk in those situations as well. When you don't really have much, you can give it a red hot crack. So, and for someone that's going to like take that first step starting from scratch, I think the way I think about it, Billy, is before you do it, you kind of need to figure out the direction that you want to go in. But I also think that can be quite difficult because you can overthink it, and then analysis paralysis sort of seeps in, and then you don't do anything, which can be a little bit of a trap. How do you feel about that, and how do you approach really that starting from scratch and getting an idea of just what direction to go in?
Well, I think a lot of people who've done well in life, like financially or with their careers or whatever, they often did start working an average job for shitty money, but they just had a good mindset towards it. They was like, well, this is my job. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to do big hours, and I'm going to not spend any money. And that's often how it starts. Um, just building that really good work ethic and building up a bit of savings, like that's often, unfortunately, the first step, as hard as it sounds. But then it probably ties into what we're talking about before with connecting with people who are where you want to be from there, like using that as your starting point, just working really hard, taking that job really seriously, and then figuring out where you're going to go from there.
Mm.
Because if you, let's say, fresh out of high school and you've got this lofty goal, like what's the first step? You can't jump straight into it. Like you just need to you just need to get out there and earn a few dollars to start out with, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, then you figure out through that process sometimes what you don't want to do, which is also valuable. Where you just got
Exactly.
to have a shot at and a crack at things. Like for me, it was when I left high school. Yeah, concreting. Yeah, it was concreting. And I tell you what,
Yeah.
there was those days out there, and it's like 40 degrees. We're out there in the scorching hot sun, and I was like, this can't be my life. Like this cannot be what my life is for the rest of my life. And there's absolutely nothing against anyone that concretes. And my old boss is an absolute legend and still doesn't. Is born and bred to do that and makes a good living out of it. But I was like, no, this could not be for me. And then so, I'd literally just be at home, like thinking there in bed. I'm like, all right, what the hell do I do? I'm like, well, I've always been interested in money and investing. So maybe let's start thinking about that. And that's when I restarted my studies again at that stage and did my, business degree in accounting. And I still reckon there was no other concreter in Australia at that point in time who was studying an accounting degree at the exact same time. I never met one, but maybe there is one out there or someone that's listening. But yeah, it took through trying things and really not liking them to help me figure out what I wanted to do. And I always had this inkling around sort of money and investing, but just there's no one pushing me to it. So I just kind of ended up going away and then sort of filtering my way back to it, and then discovered what financial planning was. And then I was like, all right, I'm just going to take a job for whoever's going to let me work in an office, because I've never worked in an office. And somehow someone let me into an office with no experience whatsoever. And then I, never looked back from there. But I think just, yeah, part of that is just, just actually getting out there and having a bit of a crack. And then again, trying to figure out that direction, because you might have an idea of the direction you want to go in. But usually, I suppose the first thing that comes to mind may not actually be the right one, but hey, you give it a crack, and then if it doesn't work out, well, then it's a good lesson. I don't.
Well, I think the
That's
lesson
about
is
it.
like get out there, right? Like that you can't
Yeah.
just sit at home endlessly listen to podcasts and watching YouTubes. Like you have to get out there, even if it means doing some crappy job for a crappy hourly rate. At least you're out there, you're talking to people, you're meeting people, you're seeing how the world works. You can't really just do it for most people anyway. You can't really just do it from the spare bedroom at home. Like, yes, yeah.
No, talking to ChatGPT all night about your problems is probably not gonna solve your problems. Well, it's like that quote, "Nothing changes if nothing changes." But look, me personally, I'm definitely a big believer in, like, the law of attraction, and if you, if you want and seek out something, it may not seem like it at that point in time, but if you really desire and want something in life, like, for me, looking back over my life, like, things just happen, and the, right people walk into your life at the right time, or something that may seem like not doesn't seem right at that point in time, and then you look back and you're like, "Well, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have ended up here." Again, that for me has definitely helped me along the journey, and in hindsight, can now reflect back on those things and hopefully impart them onto people that are listening. But what about another trap, Billy, in terms of avoiding that comparison and feeling like they're behind? I had a point of don't compare your day one to someone's day 100 is something I think a lot of people fall for. But what do you think about that one? How to avoid that comparison trap?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing is when you see someone who you think, oh, they're doing well, or you feel some jealousy, or how come it's so easy for them, it almost never is, and it almost never is what it looks like. Like
Yes, so
someone,
true.
those people where their life looks perfect on Instagram or whatever, 90% of the time it's rubbish. Like they're not happy, or they're actually not in a good financial position, or like everyone's life is hard in different ways. So
Yep.
it's definitely helpful to be aware of that. I mean, like I think about my life, and I have always worked in small businesses, or probably as is now medium business, but I never worked in corporate. Most of my friends work in corporate careers. And I remember getting a bit jealous of them years ago because they'd done the studies, got the grad job, worked their way up, earning good money. And I remember getting a bit jealous. But now it's like some of those people now are, they're pretty, they're not particularly passionate about what they do. Like they've been in corporate world for years and years. And, so it was just a different time frame. Right. And now I'm in a really good spot having stuck in the small, medium business world. So comparison is just it's just pointless, right? Like you can only worry about what you can control and what you want. And everyone's different. What you want will be different from someone else.
Yeah, agree. And, I think particularly if you're looking from a financial standpoint or, wherever you're at in life, there's always going to be someone out there that is ahead of you. There will always be out there. And so if that's your kind of barometer and how you judge just how you're tracking against how other people are tracking, like you're just destined to never be satisfied in that situation. And unfortunately, do see that sort of happen with clients, and I can see it very often with clients in terms of just the way that they're speaking to me and what they're saying, and just how they're living their life. I can see that within them, that there's this part of they're trying to keep up with the Joneses, or just because of the circle of people that they live in, they have to uphold this certain lifestyle and things like that. So it's well and truly a trap. And I think that's where you just got to put your ego aside as well,
Pretty
uh,
much, yeah.
at the beginning, and just learn and learn and listen. But the other part there is, just also having good people around you. Like if you don't have the right people around you there, and they're spurring on of that, they've got that negative energy, and that's how they think about it, and they're always complaining and blaming the government or screw these people or the rich or whatever it may be. Again, that's gonna it's gonna rub off on your life. So again, another thing that like really helped me earlier on was just pretty much cleaning out who I hung around with earlier on, and then life definitely started to change thereafter.
Awesome. And also, just before we move on, just an insight from financial advisors. If you see someone with a $100,000 car, it usually has a $100,000 car lease associated with it.
99 out of 100 times that is the case.
It's usually sucking up a huge chunk of their paycheck each month. So don't read anything into those nice cars.
Oh, I've seen it, and sometimes I look and see that like what people have versus what they're driving, let's just say relative to what they have behind them, and it is actually disgusting. When- just genuinely, it's the only way I can describe it. It's disgusting. Like there's the correlation is just they're just not there, but they just got this image to uphold. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time. But talking to before we get to closing about financial traps that often catch first generation investors, I think getting rich quick is a problematic one, and those high risk, high return type situations. I've seen people get scammed out like that before, and a lot of that generally does involve in some sort of crypto type investment. I'm not saying crypto is a bad investment as well, but what are some of those common traps you think, Billy, that people fall for?
Yeah, I mean, just being sold any sort of investment, like property is the most common one in Australia. It's a new build property, right? There's someone telling you how amazing this property opportunity is, etc. As soon as you see someone trying to sell you an investment, whether it's crypto or property or anything else, it's almost always it's almost always BS. It's almost always a poor investment decision. So yeah, falling into those traps and just on the property obsession in Australia too. Like everyone's like, I need to buy properties. It really matters what you buy, and so we see it all the time that someone speaks to a mortgage broker. They're like, oh sweet, the broker told me I can buy an investment property, and they buy one without too much consideration of what they're buying, and often it doesn't work out well. So yeah, just blazing away on any crypto, or yeah, being sold a property by someone or whatever, that often doesn't end up too well.
Yeah, I think even like just avoiding the basics, like, I see a lot of people start trading, like they think trading is the way to go. So, investing in the share market, definitely you should be doing some sort of investing into the share market. But then it's like, all right, well, do I go the Warren Buffett way where I just put my money into some funds and I let it invest and compound over 10 or 20 years? Well, screw that. I'm just going to, try and pick some stocks every single day and make some money out of that. And yeah, don't get me wrong. Some people do make money out of that, but I would say it's not even the 80-20 rule. I'd say it's even less than that in terms of who actually make money out of that long term. But that's the flashy stuff that you see. And I tell you right now, the amount of trading ads I see like on my YouTube or Instagram and all of these things, it's those people are generally have got a course to sell you. Like that's the incentive. They've got something to sell. And I think that's what you always got to consider when you're getting advice off people as well. It's just like what's in it for them. Like what's the actual incentive? What's their angle?
Yeah, the
All right.
trading courses are rubbish. If the person selling that course, if they could genuinely, consistently earn even 20% a year on their trading, right? And some of them claim way, way higher than that. Even if they could do 20%, it'd be a million times more profitable for them to just do their trading instead of selling a course. So a few $100 or $1,000, whatever it is. So
So true.
yeah, just don't buy into those courses.
So true, so true. And then in closing, Billy, like what mindset shift helps someone stay on track? I want to go back to the point of the delayed gratification. I think is one of the things that you have to embrace and understand, and that ability to just put things off, and as you start seeing success, like not falling into that trap of, oh, now I've got the 100,000 or I earn this or whatever it may be, and then your lifestyle, like your lifestyle adjusts up with it. I think that's one of the biggest traps that I see people fall for, and that's why you definitely need that delayed gratification. And like even for me personally, but I had a nice car, and I could have got that very earlier on. Like could have done like you said, big lease and loan, and it's all good and well. But I knew it was too early at the time to do it. So I was like, all right, 3, 4, 5 years later, and then I'm like, all right, now it actually feels like the time. So I drove a bomb around before that up until that stage, but I was okay with it because I knew it was gonna come. So I think that delayed gratification is the big one, and then also then being sort of trying to figure out something that truly means something for you, and that really helps when those bad days come. You're sort of anchored to your why, and you know why you're going to get up the next day and go and do it. Because if not, if your why isn't strong enough, you can just too easily fold, and it's just like, nah, screw this, is just too hard. So I think you need to have a really solid why and base, and then that delayed gratification, just embrace it. What do you reckon, Billy?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. The other thing I'll say is like it's a cliche, but the journey is the important part. So if you just achieved all your financial goals in 2 years, that's all. Well, then what? Like, what are you doing after that? Like the satisfying part is the growing and the learning and the whole journey of it. So, yeah, that ties into delayed gratification. You're not trying to reach any sort of finish line.
Yeah, well, the fun is in that, like you said, in the journey, not the destination, and that's something I see a lot with business owners, and when people have some relative success, and or even I even found like when I finished my first degree, it was like, oh, you're working to this moment and this point in time, and then you get it, and then you're like, well, now what? Like it's
Yeah,
not, it's
it's
this.
great for like a day.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then you're like, well, most people are like, well, now what? And that's yeah, like you said, I think it's a great way to finish on is you need to find fun in that journey, and when you get to wherever it is you need to be. You set the next sort of mountain to climb up, and you just keep on going. It doesn't mean those mountains are always going to be bigger, but I think you just need something to always work towards in life. So that's that's really good, Billy. And ultimately, what we're saying here, guys, is you don't need to come from wealth to build it. However, it does take time, effort, and a bit of grit, but it is doable. And if this episode helps light a fire under you, follow the show, leave us a review, share it with someone who's carving their own path. And until next time, Billy, we'll see you on the Winners Playbook then.
Thank you, Josh.